Alien Earth. No, that's weird.
I mean, that's the title.
So Alien Earth, the finale has finally come. We've seen episode 7 and episode 8. And just when you think it couldn't deliver on the promise of how bad this can get, it continues to exceed my expectations, Tommy.
Oh, wow.
We thought we'd maybe hit the low point at the end of the last episode we reviewed, episode 6. You quite enjoyed episode 5 to a degree, the flashback episode where it was a bit poor AI imitation of Alien 1. And we really didn't like the subsequent episode after that. And it only went down from here as well. 7 and 8 were awful. For a finale of a season, now we can finally see the whole story as it was planned out to be. And oh god, I struggle to see any defense for this show anymore. You know, beyond the superficial elements.
You know, sometimes I keep reminding myself as we do these week-by-week reviews, you need to give the show the benefit of the doubt that it might manage to wrap the story up in a satisfying way. You don't have the full picture, which is also, you know, like a lot of articles that have been written about the show while the show was airing and people were like praising the show. And I was like, wait, you don't know where this is heading. You know, it might be a big disappointment. You should be skeptical about it up until the moment where you have, you know, the full picture. And I feel like we haven't been harsh enough with our criticism now, because if this is what everything was leading up to, then this was bad. And, you know, needless to say, this is our own opinion. I don't want to yuck anyone's yum, as they say, and I don't want to bitch about stuff just for the sake of it, but my enjoyment for the show has steadily declined throughout the season, and these last 2 episodes were my 2 least favorite episodes of the show as a whole. So
yeah. And you know, I had some slight praise for episode 1, but I remember saying to you, you know, I think my overriding opinion was that I'm seeing so many red flags here. I don't see this going in a direction that I'm going to find enjoyable, mainly with the main plotline being the kids in the synths' bodies just being a terrible idea for this, and that being the tonal consistency that we see throughout the show is just, I didn't like it at the beginning, and it only continued to get worse as it became so much more prevalent in the story. And the few characters we did like Kirsch and Morrow and the eye tentacle alien, even they only got worse as things went on, and as they had more screen time, they were exposed to be pretenders just like everybody else in the show. So,
and the aliens feel like an afterthought. They clearly had this idea that they wanted to tell the story about synthetic life more than anything else. So why are you making an alien movie? Make a fucking Blade Runner movie. That's where you should go for exploration of these kind of themes. I mean, these themes have always been in Alien, but they were kind of like a backdrop to the alien horror main event. The fact that now they're focusing on this stuff so much and so poorly, it's disappointing to me.
Amazon has a Blade Runner series on the way at some point soon, you know, and I'm sure
it's gonna be about aliens.
But I'm sure it'll be very similar to this in terms of, you know, the kind of plot threads and the concepts it's dealing with. And like you said, this show wants to be, I don't know whether you ever watched Westworld.
I've seen the first season. I've never finished it. I don't think it finishes, actually. They canceled it.
Don't you worry, because you saw the best stuff. I really love Westworld season 1. I think, as a, you know, looking at that as a standalone season of TV, I thought was really good. And, you know, this is a pale imitation of what that show is trying to do, dealing with the concepts of like what it is to be human. But I had some sort of general, more overarching things about the series that I wanted to touch on before we get into the sort of plot and details of episode 7 and 8.
Let's do it.
Noah Hawley did an interview with the Hollywood Reporter after the finale came out, and it was all was said and done. And he was asked, what is the latest on potentially getting a season 2? Previously, he had stated the show could run for as many as 5 seasons. You know, Christ alive. Could you imagine such horror, Tommy? 5 seasons of Alien Earth.
That's the real horror.
And he said, I wouldn't read too much into that. I don't have a destination in mind, and I don't know how long it will take me to get there.
What?
So, classic these kind of shows. I don't know how somebody can spend millions of dollars on a TV series when there isn't an end point in mind. Like, it's not a cohesive, finished story. And he said it in other interviews as well, where he's mentioned, you know, I have no idea where season 2 is going to go. And you're like, well, season 1's not a finished story in itself. How can you not know where season 2 is going to go? Do you know what I mean? mean?
I mean, if season 1 ended in a satisfying way and you're like, oh, this is our story and there's room to continue and explore further, that's fine. But the story is not over. Literally everything that we're kind of like hoping would happen to save the show did not happen yet.
So the story's not just not over, it barely got started at points.
Oh my god, like that final episode, we'll get into it, I guess, but like you can't say that stuff and people keep saying, oh, this is genius, this is so well crafted. Actually, no, this guy has no idea what he's doing, apparently. I mean, he's saying it.
No, the creator himself is telling us he doesn't know where this is going, so stop filling in the gaps for these people and being like, oh, this is where it's all heading to, and Kirsch has this master plan. It's all bloody nonsense.
And I want to be clear on something, because I know what some people might say hearing this criticism, that many TV shows have had similar lives. I'm thinking of one of my favorite shows ever, which is Better Call Saul. And if you ask, Vince Gilligan or Peter Gould or even the actors what the end goal for their characters was going to be, they would tell you, they didn't know, that they were crafting the story as they went along. And this happens with a lot of TV shows.
For sure.
But you need a great showrunner with a great vision that can get the most out of actors and stories and figure out what's the best way to move forward. And things in television change. Even the original Breaking Bad, Jesse Pinkman wasn't supposed to be this, major character, was supposed to die in the first season. But they liked the actor, they liked the dynamic with Bryan Cranston, so they kept him. And that was a great decision. So I'm not saying that you have to have the whole story planned out from the very beginning. But generally, especially with a sci-fi that deals with like these larger than life themes, you can't just be winging it. You need to have a plan. You need to at least, okay, if we get 2 seasons, the story ends this way. If we get 5, the story ends this way.
Completely.
But the end point needs to be clear. I'm pretty sure, the ending of Better Call Saul was always clear in Peter Gould's mind, but the way they got there changed as they were renewed for more and more seasons, and they got to explore new characters, and they got to tell more story around that.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree. And the difference there is Vince Gilligan and Gould, they know that character so well. He's pre-established and they created him in Breaking Bad. So you can trust that they know that character inside and out, and whatever they write for that character will gladly go in that direction. Yeah, I think if you're not guaranteed another season, you have to have some closure in that first season to the point where you're tying up the main plot points, and yeah, you can leave things open. The more subplots, you can leave those to set up the next season, but you have to have some closure in that first season. If for whatever case the season 2 never gets made and that's all people have, and why should anybody trust them to do anything different in season 2? Why wouldn't they just want to, we'll leave this on another massive cliffhanger so we can potentially get season 3? It's like, no, you'll get cancelled because people will stop watching and you'll never finish your story. And if you're happy with that, then clearly you weren't passionate enough or invested enough in this story.
It's just content.
Completely.
It's sad, really.
Film and TV, and entertainment is subjective to a degree.
Of course.
People will enjoy things that others will hate and vice versa. But there are some things which I just think are indefensible, in terms of the quality of writing and setups and payoffs. There is a sort of a science to writing. It's a tried and proven, tested thing. So there are things that you can step back from your personal taste and be like, actually, no, this is not done well.
Yeah, objectively trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work. You can
For sure.
point at stuff and be like, oh, this setup was poor. Last time we talked about Alien Earth was episode 5 and 6, and there's this whole subplot with Nibs, the red-haired lost girl, and the way that plot, having this trauma and having these memories removed, the whole thing is done so poorly. It's so rushed in the final product, and it doesn't really live at the impact that it should because it's done poorly. Maybe you like it anyway because you're invested in the character, but the fact stands that how it's portrayed in the show, it's not the best way it could have been portrayed.
And you said it's sad, the sort of state of TV writing, I guess, nowadays or whatever, but it's, what is really sad, Tommy, is the state of the world. And
oh my God, getting political here.
Oh, hell no. But I can look around at other people's reviews, many mainstream critics as well, and that are just speaking so glowingly about this show, praising it to the nth degree, 9 out of 10s and 5 out of 5 stars, and I just don't understand it at all. And, you know, I spent a bit of time watching some of these reviews and checking out some mainstream reviews that I wouldn't usually watch just to see what their opinions were. And the things they're saying are nonsensical to a degree. It's a sad state when people give praise to shows like this, because God forbid it gets renewed for season 2.
You know, some of the comments that I've read felt AI generated. If critics are giving this a 10 out of 10, I can only assume that the check that they got in the mail was also a 10 out of 10.
It's gotta be. It's gotta be. Disney's got a little bot farm somewhere in the world where there's thousands of people sitting at a computer in a warehouse just dropping positive comments all over the internet of Alien Earth. But so I just wanted to go into a couple of these for you, you know.
Yeah.
To see how just outrageous these things are. You know, I start off with one that you particularly would hate here, Tommy.
All right. Test me.
It's Empire magazine.
All
They
right.
did a review of the finale and they compared it to This Is Andor for Alien. Hawley's series is a rare prequel that serves to enrich its source material, breathing new life into a once tired franchise. This is the Alien resurrection we've long been waiting for.
Oh, they did a thing there.
They did do a
Alien
thing.
Resurrection. Oh my God, that's incredible.
And that's a 5 out of 5 star review from Empire.
This makes me angry in so many ways. One of the main ones is you can't possibly say that they are on the same level of quality. When setups don't work, characters have weak motivations, stuff happens just because it needs to happen, and we fuck around for 5 episodes because we have an 8 episodes show and we don't know how to fill it. While Andor's every second counts and is important. So I don't know what these guys are smoking, but I would like to try it.
And so our next one, we have Sci-Fi Now, which is maybe a lesser known publication, but, you know, Alien Earth Review, the best alien story since Aliens. Dark, whimsical, and genuinely frightening. Alien Earth proves there's still life and terror left in the alien universe. This must be written by a 4-year-old baby. If you think this is genuinely frightening, when the kids are walking around going, oh, boo-boo, and I did silly thing here. If that's what genuinely frightens you, then I'm worried. You shouldn't step outside, because I think, you know, if a bee comes and attacks you, you're going to have a freaking heart attack, I think.
I mean, I was frightened by the bad writing.
We have The Guardian, a heinous headline here. The most evil TV villain ever, ? Alien Earth's Demon Sheep Eye is a work of true genius. True genius.
That one I saw. And I laughed and I thought of you. Oh man. I mean, the sheep was cool and it was a cool idea and a cool visual.
It was one of the more interesting elements of a very bad show, especially with all the other creatures being really disappointing in what they had to offer. We said the eye was our favorite character, but calling it a work of true genius, I think is a slight stretch. And, you know, the subheadline is, sure, the xenomorph is an all-time great screen baddie, but it's no match for the eyeball octopus parasite stuffed in a sheep's head.
Oh,
great.
Shivers.
And I do somewhat agree with that. It's in this show, why would you think the xenomorphs are cool? They're not interesting and they're not scary, and they're treated, as we will talk about, they're treated as a pet.
It's funny because the stuff that they decide to praise is so strange. I had this screenshot from a Polygon article that I wanted to talk about later, but since we are reviewing reviews now, I'm just gonna put it up now, because this one caught my eye when I was doing a little bit of research for this recording, and it was an article talking about something that Alien Earth is doing that no one else has done in the history of the franchise. And it says, in its penultimate episode, Alien Earth does something that only a show set on Earth could do. Take the xenomorph outside into the sun. While the movies all take place on dimly lit spaceships or dark alien planets, the FX series is largely set on a tropical island controlled by an evil trillionaire. So it makes sense that eventually the action would spill out of Boys Cavalier's underground lab and into the daylight. And that's exactly what happens in episode 7.
That's not praise. That is a description of the events of the plot.
Yeah, there was a scene with a xenomorph in the jungle. How amazing that is, that we've never seen that. And it was, it's kind of cool, but
this is something that I found, especially when I watched a few videos of some bigger YouTubers that have done reviews of the show. In their praise, they actually just describe what happened. And I think there's an element of some people do that as like a filler. You're not really offering any opinion or like...
I guess it's for the people who are not actually watching the show, but they watch the YouTube recap of the
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
Which, if that's what you're doing with our reviews, we are not judging. You can do whatever you want. Just, leave a like and a comment and let us know how amazing our recap is.
We'll let you know what happens in the plot, especially, like you said, for people that don't want to watch it. But I think it's crucial if you're reviewing something to offer your opinion on or some criticism or commentary on what you thought happened. Yeah, big YouTubers, heavy spoilers, was a big fan of the show. I watched the last couple of his reviews. He obviously does a lot of theorizing about what's going to happen, but he spoke quite glowingly of it. Said, it sends off the series with a bang, and it does a good job of
What bang? Where was the bang?
It does a good job of closing out the story and setting things up for season 2. Completely disagree. It didn't close many things off. It's complete setup. It's all set up. No payoff.
Yeah, there wasn't. Well, I mean, I guess there's, and we'll get to that again, but like there is a little bit of payoff on Wendy and the Lost Boys, I guess, and like opening up to a future.
It's just very obvious that they were gonna get free, and I don't know. It's not the kind of closure that you want. This is maybe the midpoint of the story, the turning point.
The midpoint, because it's a mid show. Oh, got him.
Well, no, that's speaking way too glowingly of it. And, as I was scrolling through like YouTube thumbnails and reviews, and I saw this, which I'll put up on here as well. YouTuber Angry Joe has been reviewing the series too, and it has one thumbnail from like maybe 4 or 5 episodes ago. It says the best show on TV in years. And then go to the current thumbnail, it says the worst finale ever.
I guess.
It's like he came to his senses eventually. But it's just funny because those cracks were showing a long time ago. And like you said, reserve judgment until the thing is finished, because then you see it for what it is and you see it for the piece of shit that it is.
Why is it always like that? Why can it be amazing all the way through? All right. Do you have any other reviews, or should we get into the meat of it?
Yeah, let's get straight into episode 7. What did you think of this episode?
Yeah, I didn't enjoy this episode. I mean, again, a few moments here and there where you're like, oh, there's actually something here. But generally, it was meandering. It was convenient how everything happens. And some of the stuff was driving me up a wall, the way they set it up and they paid it off. So yeah, I guess we should just get into the plot, because I can't just speak generally about the episode. I need to vent about specific moments.
Yeah, of course. And so the episode was called Emergence, and it was centered around Smee and Slightly. We saw in the last episode, they got the face hugger on Arthur, I believe is his name, the scientist.
Yeah, Arthur.
This episode is about, for them anyway, is about them getting the face hugger out and getting him to meet on the face hugger attached to Arthur, getting them out of the facility and meeting Morrow to do the transaction with him, which is the most ridiculous and convoluted plan ever. And then we get the Wendy's kind of rebellion starts here. I think upon seeing Isaac, aka Toodles, dead body, which again, she's just allowed to walk into this secure lab facility and see one of the other synths dead, not thinking that might create some problems.
Yeah.
And that's kind of kickstarts her rebellion and the breakout of the facility, basically. And now we get a lot of kind of the action happening outside the lab in this episode.
Yeah. First things first, Slightly and Smee. We left Slightly at the end of episode 6. He managed to get Arthur inside the lab. The facehugger attached itself to him. There was this ventilation shaft conveniently on the floor for him to crawl into. And apparently, this ventilation shaft leads directly into Slightly's room, because of course it does. Or if it didn't, it's even worse, because it means that he got out of somewhere in the facility and then managed to bring Arthur to his room without anyone noticing.
There are only about like 7 people that work on this island, so not so hard to believe.
And then Smee comes into the room and realizes what has happened and Slightly tricks him, which was bad, because I thought they were supposed to be friends, but like he tricks him into helping him because he needs help to get this body outside of the facility, which is something that, again, again, did you just think of this? This just conveniently happened to you that your friend knocked on your door and you didn't even want him to come into the room, but now you're like, oh, actually, I need you to come with me because I can't do this by myself. So another just random moment of stupidity on the plot.
Yeah, and another, well, I suppose it's not a plot hole, but it's a major inconsistency, you know, when they're both holding Arthur's body and they're struggling with the weight of this human carcass, basically.
Even though they're supposed to be super strong.
These guys are super strong. Get rid of that stupid scene in episode 1 where Wendy jumps off a cliff like 30,000 feet in the air and lands on the sand with no impact whatsoever. Get rid of that and don't establish that they have these super strengths, because they ignore it for most of parts of the rest of the series. Yeah, so that was already annoying. And the idea of these two carrying Arthur's body with the face hug around this facility, that cameras everywhere, security supposedly everywhere, and how it works out. And that's obviously where they bump into Kirsch as well, and he lets them go and he tells them the best way to get down to the beach is this way, you make sure you go there. So it's like, okay, for some reason Kirsch wants them to deliver the Xeno to Yutani and the cyborg, but later in the episode we realize that is not the case at all. So
yeah, he just used slightly to bait Morrow into a trap so he could capture him.
But what if they made it there in time and he just got to take the specimen off the boat and they all leave and job's done?
I don't know what to tell you, man. Just don't think about it, which is a mantra for this show. But yeah, speaking of Kirsch, there's a line here when he's in the lab. Finally, someone is checking on this fucking lab, by the way. They secure it, they get all the specimen in containment units.
Oh, God. The two most competent people in the whole series were these two random security guys with the, like, electric batons, and they get all the creatures back into their cages in an instant. It's like, oh, well, that was pretty easy, actually.
And then Wendy walks in, as you mentioned, you know, everyone comes and goes as they please. She sees Toodles, Isaac's body on this gurney, and she's like, what happened to Isaac? And Kirsch says, science. What a line. What a fucking line.
That shit was epic.
They should have added a needle drop there, but they didn't, unfortunately.
But they would have loved to. I'm sure Noah Hawley tried his goddamn heart out to have another musical drop in that scene.
So here, Wendy decides it's time to skedaddle out of this horrible place. So she plans her escape with her brother Joe and tries to convince the other Lost Boys to follow her. Well, the ones she can find, because she doesn't seem to care much about Slyly and Smee.
She doesn't give a shit. Yeah, I wrote that she's on this mission to save all of them, and then she finds Nibs and Curly, and she's like, nah, that'll do.
That's good enough. And here we have a scene that I was kind of anticipating. And again, the show disappointed me in how it decided to handle it, because we've established that she has this bond with the Xeno. She almost sees it as another brother, another lost boy in a way, even though, you know, in the Peter Pan metaphor, he's supposed to be the crocodile, I guess. So she might want to free it, and freeing it, of course, means destruction and death for everyone but her and the other Lost Boys. So how is she gonna deal with this moral dilemma? How is she gonna be able to free the Xeno without hurting the other people in the facility that she supposedly cares about? Well, you know, she just opens the door to the Xeno cage with her powers.
It murders all the scientists.
I understand she likes it and sees it as this kin, but doesn't she understand that this will be very, very dangerous? It could kill Joe, and we establish later that she has total control over this Xeno. So it won't kill Joe, but like, it might.
Yeah, this bit was ridiculous. Basically, Wendy turns full villain in episode 7 and 8, pretty much. And I don't think that's the intention of the show. And you can't massacre general, like, security and scientists. They're kind of innocent in this. Like, obviously, you know, they're part of this machine that's doing these bad things, but to the fact that you're happy for them to get massacred by a xenomorph, that makes you a villain. She turns full heel, and the show doesn't realize it. They just think she's so badass.
And even, you know, like, removed from her character motivation, you could argue, you know, they could have made it a bigger point that she didn't care anymore about these people and she just wanted to free the alien.
That would be quite interesting.
But like from a storytelling perspective, this is a moment that you should milk. It's a turning point for her, for the story. You're freeing the Xeno. It should be built up, but it just happens.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It should go one of two ways, really, that scene, you know, and the way it develops her character. Either she is becoming more android and she's losing touch with humanity, which they kind of deal with her relationship with Joe slightly. She either is losing touch with humanity and she watches the Xeno massacring all these humans and doesn't react to it, and you're like, okay, maybe, you know, she is losing touch with Marcy, who she used to be. Or she releases the Xeno, not quite realizing what she's done, and it kills all these people, and she looks on the screens and looks on in kind of horror and has to deal with that situation.
Yeah.
But this, it just treats it as, whatever. On to the next thing.
Yeah. And the next thing is the scene with the graves.
Which could be a very interesting idea.
Yeah.
It's an interesting image. It could be a cool concept. You know, you have these synths looking over at their graves. And, you know, it probably should have happened like earlier in the season, this scene, to be honest. Like, because it's way less impactful now. And just like any decent concept they have in this show, it is ruined by the goddamn dialogue because everybody's a kid and they have to say stupid things. And we have this what could be a profound scene of them standing over their own graves.
Nibs just saying bullcrap.
Nibs is like, are we dead? Am I a ghost? And then Wendy goes, no, we are us.
Wow, another banger line. Were they trying to say something, you think, you know, about humanity and life? I guess that scene was meant to be profound, and it could have been, but I didn't feel much watching it. But yeah, we catch up with Slightly and Smee, I think, right around here, and this is where Arthur, first he wakes up when they are like hiding from these soldiers. They lose track of Arthur for a second, but basically this is the moment where the facehugger leaves the host because its job is done, and Arthur, you know, wakes up and everything is fine. And we know, because we know Alien, we know the story, we know how the xenomorph becomes a xenomorph, so you know, there's this nice little ticking clock where, you know, you're waiting for Arthur to basically explode, die, and Slightly and Smee don't know this. So again, here they're trying to, first of all, they're trying to develop a character, Arthur, who was way in the background and was never really important up until like last episode, all of a sudden. So I should care more about him, but I don't really.
He had the argument with his wife, and they never see each other again. The last thing they did, he quit the job and she decided to stay on and take over his role.
Yeah.
And that's like some major conflict there, and they're like, nah, don't need to deal with that.
And that doesn't really speak about him anymore.
No, she never mentions him again, really.
Yeah, so he dies after giving a beautiful speech on how much he cares about the boys and how good he is and how sad it would be if he died right then and there. And then he dies. And the next scene, they have this giant raft to carry Arthur on the water. That should have taken them hours to make, by the way. And I'm like, what happened? Like, how did you make this? Where did you find it if it was already made? Like, honestly, I know it sounds nitpicky, but it just removes any credibility from what you're watching. Like, they didn't have the raft, the previous scene. Of course, you know, there must have been something cut.
Give us the extended director's cut, the 15-minute sequence where they make the raft. You cowards.
I mean, it's just confusing to see them all of a sudden in the water with a raft.
No, I'm totally with you. And I think when a show's written well and you're really invested, those little things you don't pick up on because your suspension of disbelief is there. But when it's this bad and there's so many inconsistencies, you see all of those things, I find.
And it could have been easily just a tree trunk that they found in the water, and they put the corpse on top and just pushed it.
Yeah, you fixed it.
But then, like, if it's a raft, you're like, wait, why do they have a raft? How did they make it? How do they know how to make it? I know that they're like robots, I guess, so maybe they have a raft making program in their brain somewhere. But
and these two of the stupidest of all the synths decided, the only thing I'm gonna download is the raft making manual. I'll be sufficed with just that information in my
just
head.
because they wanted to leave the show, and to leave the show they had to leave the island, I guess. But yeah, they get Arthur to Morrow and the other soldiers, but it's too late, and Morrow very coldly says, we move on to target 2 now. And the whole plan feels not thought out, which kind of hurts Morrow as a character, as we mentioned. It's supposed to be this smart, cold and calculating machine. But then he relies on a boy to deliver the specimen to him at a random location far away from the facility, and to do so before the xeno hatches from its body.
Yeah, and let's not forget, he downloaded all the information from the ship, so he probably,
knows.
to some degree, understands the gestation process and things like that. Maybe not the timings, because they haven't had the ability to experiment this yet, but he clearly is aware that he needs to get the facehugger on the thing, and it will give birth to the xeno. So he is aware that that is a process that needs to happen during this heist, basically.
And it's a bad plan because he has no control over that shit.
Completely.
He cannot know when the embryo will do its thing and burst through.
But don't worry, Tommy. He has plan B, which is walk straight through the front doors of the facility and be shocked when he sees that there's soldiers there. He's like, what the hell? What's happening?
And Kirsch is like, checkmate, bro. Like,
literally, that is the scene.
Oh man, it feels so forced and contrived.
If episode 5 hadn't kind of ruined Morrow, this episode fully ruins him and turns him into a complete idiot. Like, what big plan is this, you know?
We're gonna do this my way. Well, your way is fucking stupid, Morrow. I'm sorry.
Your way requires a 5-year-old boy to be like the mastermind of your whole plan. So.
Oh, what else? We have the scene with Boy Cavalier and the eyeball sheep alien guy, which I guess has a name, but we've never called it by its name, and it's too late now to start. So it's just gonna be the eyeball alien guy.
Something the Oculus or whatever, I don't know.
Yeah, Ocellus or Celius or something like that. Eyeball is fun. Eyeball is cool. I like Eyeball.
Eyeball's fun, and again, this is a kind of an interesting concept that he's having the conversation with it, and it knows the pi numbers and that. It has that intelligence, and somehow it understands English, I guess, from being around people speaking the language. But it's his obsession with it now. This is his new thing. You know, he wanted that thing to have the most intelligent conversation. He wanted a conversation with someone as intelligent as him, and he's found it. It's a sheep. And his dialogue really changes in the last 2 episodes. Not that his dialogue was good before, and he said like some crass things, but now he's swearing so much, and he's like, yeah, fuck this, fuck that. And it's like, I think if you're trying a characterization of like a cold, calculated boy genius, that's not how I would write them, you know, overly emotional and swearing all the time and losing their shit.
Yeah, but there's something that I dare to say enjoyed about him, because at this point he should be terrified, but he's always kind of smiling, always trying to crack a joke or something, because he doesn't want to show fear, I guess.
So we do see him terrified a few times though in the show.
But he tries to hide it every time.
Yeah, which I is so stupid considering the severity and seriousness of the situation.
Yeah, he's an eccentric trillionaire.
Exactly, and that's what we hate about him, Tommy. He crawls across tables during board meetings on all fours. He walks into laboratories and announces, I need a colonic. This is the guy who needs to tell you in almost every episode that he is a genius and he has the brain the size of a planet, because we will never see him do intelligent things, so he has to tell you.
Oh my god.
Yeah, we get the setup that it's like, you know, I want to put you in a human and see if we can have a conversation with you. And you're like, okay, we could see where that's going to go. And we kind of, you know, we think, oh, you know, it's going to be Joe. Joe is going to be the test subject for that. But obviously Joe has insane plot armor, so there's no way that thing's ever getting on him. So
Joe's plot armor is insane. In the first few episodes, he gets attacked by a Xeno. Morrow saves him. Then he gets attacked by a Xeno again, and Wendy saves him. At first I was like, okay, when is this guy gonna die? This is gonna push Wendy to the machine side of life. She loses the human connection that she needed to remain more human-like. I don't know. And I kept waiting for poor Joe to die in some horrific way, and it never happened. But we'll get to that when we talk about episode 8, because I have a bone to pick with the scene where the eyeball tries to, spoilers, I guess.
Oh my god, he grows the strength of a synth in seconds. So yeah, and that's plot armor for you there. But yeah, I mean, let's wrap up episode 7. The last scene is Joe, Nibs, and Wendy all getting down to the dock. And initially, I was slating this scene when they get down to the dock is empty, no security. There's one boat there, and you're like, okay, this facility's on lockdown. This is surely the one place you should have some guards, the place where people can get in and out. And there's nobody there. They jump on the boat, and then out pops Joe's friends, these hired soldiers.
Yeah. All of a sudden, they are super loyal to the company, and they need to stop them.
Yeah. And they pop out of nowhere and have a little fight ensues with Nibs, and Nibs is about to kill loads of these soldiers, and
she kills one.
She smacks one's jaw off, which was quite cool.
Yeah.
And then Joe puts her down with the electric shotgun, and Wendy screams,
What
are you doing? And then hard cut, end of episode.
Needle drop. So cringe. Yeah, the needle drops are getting way out of hand.
What kind of a way is that to end an episode?
I've read that Noah Hawley intentionally had these like big rock and roll songs at the end of each episode to give the show this sense of grandeur and style. But I'm sorry, it was cute in the beginning. I said it in our first review of the show. I kind of liked how energetic it felt, because it gets you excited for the next episode.
It gets you excited for the next episode that's in 7 days' time.
It feels like it needs to jolt you back to life because you were dozing off because the show is so boring.
I think that's what it is, man. It's for you to wake up once you fucking fallen asleep at the end of the episode.
Wake up so you can push the play next button and watch some more ads.
And so, well, yeah, if you were to give it, you give it a rating, episode 7. What are you giving it?
It's a 4. I guess I gave a 4 to the previous one, so it's on that level.
Yeah, it's a 3.5 for me. 4. It's around that mark. It's just shocking, and it picks straight back up almost from that previous scene in episode 8.
It actually doesn't, because we have a little bit of a time skip, which I found annoying because I watched these back to back, and we go from them kind of like squaring off in the port to them being already in custody, captured inside this circular jail room, which, okay, how did you get here? Why didn't the Xeno intervene? I guess because she didn't want the Xeno to kill everyone. All of a sudden, she's growing conscious again. And then Dame Julia, the scientist lady person, goes to visit the graves for whatever fucking reason.
Yes.
This is the perfect moment to do that, by the way.
Well, again, the facility's on lockdown. Everything's in absolute pure chaos, but she can just walk in and out as she pleases, and she doesn't care that apparently all the aliens are out on the loose. Like, that's not a bother to her at all.
Obviously, she runs into the Xeno, who's about to kill her, but then the soldiers arrive and they save her. And even this scene, like this 5-second fucking scene, I don't want to nitpick again, but we see the Xeno approaching from the rear. She turns around, she's terrified, oh my god, the alien. And then the Xeno gets hit by something coming from the front, like we see like something impacting on his face. But then the soldiers arrive from the back. So like, who shot what? Like, it's so unclear, like the action in the show. With a few exceptions, honestly, I found it really lacking and really unclear, like difficult to read. And
the shots look nice because a lot of the sets look good and the costumes look good, but the actual directing is really quite poor, and I think it was better earlier on. I remember it being like sequences being directed a lot better in the earlier.
The first few episodes were so much better.
Maybe that's because Noah Hawley was directing those, because I know definitely he didn't direct the last episode, which was I think Dana Gonzalez or something like that directs the final one. So the quality of directing drops off so hard in the second half of the season for sure.
Yeah, we were talking about the Xeno like being shot in broad daylight in the jungle.
Oh, man.
And there's this scene in episode 7, and I think another one very similar in episode 8, where like the Xeno is in broad daylight, but apparently they realized on set on the day that it looked terrible. So there's like a bunch of foliage in front of the screen, and we only see like a small portion of the scene through this foliage of like Wendy interacting with the Xeno, and the Xeno is clearly just a guy on all fours kind of like crawling towards her.
And there's way too many shots of the Xeno, especially in these last 2 episodes, where the Xeno is just standing on the spot and its head is tilting from left to right, and it's like, does it never just just stay still sometimes,
Like,
the Xeno, and they think that looks really creepy and cool, and it just doesn't in daylight. It looks silly.
like the movement feels like a parody of what we've seen before in a way. Kind of like
Yeah,
the guy in the suit is trying to replicate those movements from previous actors who play the character. So yeah, what did you do? Which was a line, even though it was quite clear what Joe did there. It just shot your sister because she was acting like a bitch.
Yeah. And not only that, he literally just put her unconscious for a moment, and she is unharmed in when we see Nibs again in episode 8. So it's like, Wendy, chill out, man. You've got like a body count of like 100 right now,
You
and
freed
Joe
the
is
fucking
saving
Xeno.
everybody he can see. So get off your goddamn moral pedestal, because Joe is better than you.
Yeah.
We get a weird kind of narration from Boy Cavalier's right-hand man, the old fella. I don't remember
Adam.
the character's name. Adam, right. And, well, that makes sense he's called Adam because he's the first...
Well, Atom, not Adam, because they're geniuses.
Yeah, because he's the first ever synth made, I think, what we realized later on in this episode.
Which was cool.
Very heavy on the symbolism again. I call the first man synth I make Adam. And he's giving this narration, like catching everybody up to speed with like the scenario of what's going on. He's like, these things are contained and these things aren't, and this one's out and this is where everything's at. And it's like, just in case you've just been sitting on your phone for the last 7 hours and not really been watching the show, I'll just give you a nice little brief overview of where we're at, setting the stage for the final episode.
Yeah. But I did like this actor. I like his presence. I like his voice. Yeah.
For sure. Good actor. Unfortunate role.
But it's kind of interesting that you didn't clock that he was a machine because, it was an old man. But then Boy explains that he basically used his synthetic to replace his own father. He killed his own father and he became the head of his company. And I guess, this atom serves him. And I think there's a few scenes in previous episodes that kind of like hinted this. There's like a scene where there's this wall of like synthetic faces and he is sat next to them and is supposed to be one of the faces on the wall. So like, there's little things here and there that could have been cool in a cool show.
Yeah. That could have been cool, yes.
That could have been. But speaking of Adam, and we were talking about Joe early, there's this scene now where he leads Joe into Boy Genius's office, where they have left the containment cage with the sheep inside. And the door is flung open. And I was like, oh, because Adam is kind of like trying to lure Joe into the room. He's saying, Boy is gonna hear you out. He wants to help you. He wants to help Wendy, which is so stupid that he would believe that, but he's trying to figure stuff out as he goes. But I was like, oh, so the eyeball is gonna embed itself into Joe, and then maybe we're gonna have a scene where Wendy comes across him, and this is gonna confront Wendy's beliefs. She will see her brother no longer himself, but a hybrid of some kind, because the eyeball is using his body to mimic human life. And just like the hybrids, humans and machines, this theme that you are trying to harp on so hard, maybe Wendy will have to ask herself, is this still my brother? Am I still Marcy, or am I something else? Is he something else? Like, I don't know. Like, I felt like they were leading into this very cool idea of, like Joe is gonna die, and this is what is gonna send Wendy over the edge.
Right.
And make her like lose her mind and become fully evil and command the Xenomorph to destroy everything. Something like that. I don't know.
I suppose because it's the finale, there was a small element of me that thought maybe they would sacrifice Joe at this point and he'll get, but I just didn't think he was going to die at any point really in this episode. And when he's walking in, especially now he's being led in by Atom and we now get the idea that he's a synthetic. I was kind of like, oh, maybe it would go on him then because it can't get on the synthetic.
Yeah.
So who is it going to attach itself to in this scenario? And the answer is nobody relevant.
Oh my God.
The show surprises you in that way because it's like, no, it's not this, it's not that. It's something you couldn't possibly thought of. And look how we subverted your expectations by doing something completely nonsensical.
So first of all, the eyeball finally, we should finally see it take control of a human. And of course it doesn't. Of course it doesn't happen because this is a bad show, but it tries.
Not just a human, but a relevant character as well. Sacrifice a relevant character.
Yeah. So it tries to attack him, but Joe has the reflexes of fucking machine. So it manages to shield himself from it. And then he has the quick thinking of hiding himself into the containment unit that was left open, which was fun little reversal and cat and mouse game with the alien eyeball. But then something very stupid happens, because I was like, okay, so how is he gonna get to him? Is he gonna trick him in a way, or do something very smart? He just gets into the containment unit by opening the food tray, I guess it was, where there was some food for the sheep, which makes me think, if you can get in from outside, you can get out from inside.
There is no reason that the eye couldn't have just done that at any point, basically.
Why didn't he do it before? It's so. And then Wendy gets in the room and saves him, and Eyeball decides, okay, I am outsmarted, I'm outmatched, I'm gonna leave through this hole, and I guess he's gonna go find someone else in the facility to control. That's what was my guess. I was like, oh, is he gonna be Boy Cavalier? Is he gonna be someone cool that we couldn't expect? But actually, no, none of this happens, because that would be interesting. The fucking Eyeball leaves the facility. We don't see this, of course. It goes from the fucking building in the forest, in the jungle. It goes into the forest, walks on his little tentacles legs for who knows how long.
Probably a very long time.
And he goes to find Arthur's corpse on the beach. That is so fucking stupid. How do you know to find it? Did it not find any other human on the way that it could do this to? It needed to get to this specific point on the island that it didn't know about, and go to this one specific corpse and crawl into that face for some reason.
Hardcore defenders could be like, oh, he knew that the alien's so smart. He knew there was a dead body that'd be easy for the taking down by the beach. And it's like, no, this is so contrived and so silly.
Oh man, and we don't even get to see anything. I suppose, even though I was disliking the show, I was enjoying some of the action and some of the alien concepts, and I was kinda waiting on some of this stuff with the aliens, because I felt like that was the best part of the show. We were waiting on the big plant alien to do something, and we'll get to that. We're waiting on the alien eyeball to do something.
Yeah, we said in the earlier reviews, that was the hook that was somewhat keeping us slightly interested, just to see. And Noah Hawley had set this up himself in many interviews, saying, if you haven't seen an alien, if you haven't seen one of these new creatures eat or reproduce, then I've got something special in surprise, and keep watching. And really, none of them actually do anything interesting other than the eye, to a degree. But
yeah, but that's the last we see of him.
Completely. What we needed a scene where he comes back and the eye has a conversation with somebody, and you could get some cool scene where he's saying some crazy shit. And I just kind of thought of the eye needed to have some sort of line like that, where we set up that, oh, it's going to be able to speak, but you have to wait potentially 3 or 4 years to see that in season 2.
Yeah, and I'm like, I needed that payoff now to want to keep watching, because all we have so far is the promise of something that might be cool. But honestly, you spent 8 hours almost to develop all these characters, to develop all these plot lines, and all we end up with is the promise of something else to come in a second season. I don't think that's enough, man. I understand how televised storytelling works, and I understand that not every plot thread can be resolved in season 1, but at least the stuff that you've established to be important should be addressed in a way. Not just oh, by the way, the eyeball is over here, and it took control over this scientist guy that you barely knew. And I guess that's interesting, because he's gonna go talk to his wife maybe in season 2. But
oh my god, yeah. That's you've got it right there. And they will have the greatest conversation in television history, I imagine, because that's what they're saving up for season 2.
Well, I mean, They have 2 years at least to write that scene, so it's gonna be banging.
It's not long enough, Tommy. It's not long enough.
This was not a well-earned ending to me.
No, it's shocking. And, we get the ending to Kirsch and Morrow's characters to a degree. I mean, it's the finale episode, and potentially there's not going to be another season. So this is maybe what we see them as the end. And they have a little fight, which is really underwhelming. And again, you'd assume the synths should win. They're super strong. He's only half a synth, or, he's a cyborg, so he shouldn't really win that fight. But they both have opportunities to finish each other off.
Yeah.
Obviously, they don't take it, because these two characters who have appeared to be so dangerous earlier on in the show, when it comes to a character that has lines, they're not allowed to kill him, and that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
And Smee and Slightly capture them later on, and they have an opportunity to maybe finish them off. But no, they gather them all up and put them in the same prison that was holding the synth kids. And it's funny, you go around the prison and it's like, oh, it's all the main characters from the show. They don't even maybe sprinkle in a couple of extra soldiers here and there. They literally only managed to capture all the characters with speaking parts, and that was it.
Yeah, and this was the moment where characters like Kirsch and Morrow that were kind of interesting and well acted and were keeping me engaged in a way in the show. This is where they ruined them, I think, in a way that cannot be fixed, because Kirsch, was presented to be more than what it is at the end of the day, and Morrow as well. It's just wasted characters lined up for Wendy to waltz in and lecture them about life and how cool she is now, tell them off on what they did, and have a one last awful needle drop, even if the song Animal by Pearl Jam is actually awesome.
We also brushed over the fact that it's established that she can control all the technology in the facility as well, which seems like a bit of a stupid thing to build into these characters who are emotionally unstable. There's no failsafe put into these androids at all in case they rebelled, or, you decide to give Wendy, and just only Wendy, the powers to control all tech within the facility too. And she's, clicking open the doors in the most cringe fashion. And we get the worst reveal when Atom has taken Joe in to be accosted by the eye alien. She stops him. She freezes him in place, and it's like, oh great, now she can control all the synths as well in this world.
He's mechanical and he's on the network, so I can do whatever.
Yeah, you're right. They did explain it, so I can't criticize that, because they did have that line straight after which explained it, and it's like, okay, well that's fine. Now she's a god. She's not only a tech god, but she can also command all the Xenos. And oh my god, you may have just produced the biggest Mary Sue character there has ever been, and you've reduced the most iconic sci-fi monster in the history of cinema to a pet for this terribly written Mary Sue character. And man, that's fucking Disney in a nutshell right there.
And we don't throw the term Mary Sue around easily. We're not just like, oh, female character, she's a Mary Sue. But, Wendy kind of fits that description, to be honest.
I mean, Mary Sues don't tend to go through any hardships. They're the best at what they do. Everything falls in place for them. They're all powerful. They don't need to learn their skills either. Everything's just handed to on a plate. That's kind of the definition. And Wendy does fit that. She has some struggle in the earlier episodes, as she is obviously a terminally ill child being put into the synth body. But once it becomes kind of Wendy, she is just all powerful, all knowing. Everybody listens to her. She is the leader. And and now in this episode, she can control Xenos and synths at her every whim. And what a ridiculous character to introduce into the franchise, honestly.
A bit too overpowered, to be sure. What else can I say, man? This was not a good show. I'm sorry. If you liked it, more power to you. If you listened to our rambling, even if you liked it, that's awesome. Thank you, I guess. And if I really want to hear your thoughts, because I guess there's some redeeming qualities here and there, but overall the writing was subpar to me. The story was not engaging enough or alien enough. As we mentioned, it was more of a Blade Runner concept with some aliens.
Completely. And by the end of season 1, how many of the main or even secondary characters are dead? And for a franchise which is based off, like we said, Alien is like a slasher film in space, like haunted house film in space, and the crux of those kind of stories is that not many characters are safe in these kind of environments. Nobody of any significance really dies in this whole show.
Yeah.
And there's so many opportunities where they could have had.
I did expect some kind of consequence to what was happening, a resolution.
Yeah, because, if you're trying to tell me how dangerous these creatures are and how dangerous the synths are and how dangerous the Xenos are, then there has to be consequences, and it can't just be soldiers dying off screen and random people we've never seen getting massacred in a 5-second sequence. It's not impactful in that way. There really should have been some like major character deaths in the last few episodes, and it just never happened.
Yeah, and at some point at the end of the episode, there were like 15 minutes left, I guess. And I was like, are they gonna do something with the plant alien?
Oh yeah, we finally get the reveal.
We kind of saw him briefly at the beginning. There was this little hole, I guess, in its containment unit.
When it fights, when Kirsch and Mora are fighting, like when the bullets ricochets and opens the glass, yeah.
Exactly. So I guess, it can squeeze through it like an octopus or something like that. Cool design, cool concept for a monster. I saw people theorizing that it's connected to predators and the predator technology because they can cloak themselves. So they're like, maybe it's from the predator home planet and they got that technology from like reverse engineering those plants, and like that's a fun connection that people are making.
Interesting you say that, because my dad thought that potentially that pod thing was gonna like impregnate a person and out pops out like maybe like a baby predator, and that's like the big reveal at the end. And I was like, yeah, there must be a reason why they've kept this till the very end, and they've teased it like many times, and especially with Predator Badlands having that crossover, I thought that was a potential of something that could happen, and it would have been cheap, especially in this, but still would have been quite a cool visual reveal. And no, it just turned out to be a big blanket.
Yeah, big blanket that gets one of the soldiers, one of Joe's friends, and just eats it. I guess that's all.
And it only kills one of them, and like the rest of the soldiers watch on. Like the scene cuts too early, and that happens so many times in this episode. There's also like so many pointless scenes, like that scene when there's like a corridor shot and like a soldier gets dragged into like a section of the corridor, and all the soldiers burst around the corner and the Xeno's there like standing over a dead soldier, and then it cuts away to outside and you can hear some screams and some gunshots, and it's like that has no impact whatsoever. I don't know what you think that's gonna do to the audience, to be honest.
Pointless scenes, pointless characters. Have we mentioned Curly yet? Like I was like, oh, I like this actor, I like the character, I like that she's jealous of the other lost boys, I like that she wants to be Boy Genius' favorite, and then she does nothing the entire show. And then they want to have this moment where she goes with Wendy and she's like, oh, call me Jane or something, because she decided to drop the name that the boy gave her. And I was like, am I supposed to be... What am I supposed to be now? What am I supposed to feel? Of course, they want to set up characters for new seasons that they're gonna make, but what are you setting up?
What do you mean?
Like this
What
is
do you mean,
just...
Tommy? Now they rule.
Oh yeah, that's true.
They're standing around the cage, and we have the Xenos, both the Xeno adult and the baby Xeno next to them on the cage, and like nobody else is scared of them anymore. Like they're just there. They're just like set dressing now, and that's what the Xenomorph has been reduced to in this show.
Amazing. Well, what else can we say?
Final verdicts. Get your final verdicts in. I also in my research I saw that the premiere received 9.2 million global viewers in 6 days, which is successful. Classic, like any other streaming service, they do not release the numbers for later on in the show, because I imagine there was a massive drop off in viewership on this one, because that's typically...
You need to wait for the Nielsen ratings, but those come out like a few weeks after the fact, so we won't know for a while.
Yeah, even then with streaming services, it's very hard to get accurate information for how many people are actually watching these things, and those numbers are controlled a lot of the time internally. movie. So typically, if a show doesn't release it, then it's probably dropped off. And if they're not celebrating it and shouting from the rooftops, typically it's seen a massive drop off. But if the first episode had 9.6 million viewers, this might get a season 2. Noah Hawley seems to be confident it's going to get a season 2. So, God, and it's something that it'll probably take years as well. And people will have completely forgotten what happens in this show by then.
Yeah, agreed. Well, what grade would you give the last episode, and I guess the show as a whole now?
Yeah, I guess this drops down probably the worst because we see it for what it truly is in this final episode. So this goes down to like a 3 out of 10.
Yeah,
I suppose, and it makes the series average out at about a 3.5 of a 4. For me, it's definitely below average. As I've said before, same with Romulus, because it's a franchise that I love. It has so much potential. Visually, it's amazing. You've got these HR Giga designs, which are iconic, that you're allowed to use. You've got all this great stuff to work with, and this is what you produce. I'm going to judge you harsher than if it was an original IP. So yeah, this is well below average for me.
Just there's a cheap remake of Alien 1 spliced in between a story about synthetics that would have befitted a Blade Runner show better. I guess this is the first time that we agree on a grade. I usually always am a little bit more generous with my grades, but this was just bad. And, looking at the show as a whole, this is a 3. It's subpar television, subpar storytelling, in my opinion. I didn't like it. I'm sorry. Maybe the whole show, considering everything I liked and everything I disliked, maybe, it's more of a 4.5, maybe a 5, but yeah, doesn't pass. We'll see you next year if you manage to get a season out.
There's no way this is coming out in a year's time. Yeah. This is going to be on a couple-year hiatus for sure. We'll see. Usually they would have announced it already, but I will be there to watch that dumpster fire burn.
Me too.
Well, at least you still got your looks. I don't like this cat. He reads minds.